What is your disability and how do you manage? Fibromyalgia. I watch my energy expenditure, take the time to walk every day. I can manage it, rest when I need it, take my diclofenac, drink masala chai, put turmeric in my food, see a whole lot of doctors, and say no a lot. We're working on getting me a foldable cane so I can have it on hand when I'm dizzy. I have step stools that count as low seats in the laundry room and bathroom. I have heating pads and use them. It's not enough to make me able to hold a job, but it's enough to make me able to cook simple meals 4 nights a week and find things about my life to enjoy and be grateful for. Progressive motor neuron disorder. I've been dealing with it for 26 years now. I'm lucky that mine has progressed slowly. I use a wheelchair at this point. Unluckily my insurance only covers shitty ... heavy ... cumbersome ... worthless chairs, so I have to pay out of pocket. With the chair I have now I can work 40+ hours a week and go out with friends a couple times a week. Weekends are usually spent recuperating from all the energy I spent getting around all week. I have chronic gastritis, mystery stomach problems. It's been about 8.5 years of this. I can't drink alcohol at all anymore. I cannot eat anything spicy or acidic. I am in constant pain, varying between a burning feeling in my stomach to just constant nausea/pressure/swelling feelings. It's taken a huge mental toll on me since I have considered myself a little bit of a foodie and I cannot enjoy food like I used to. Doctors cannot figure it out and I've had so many tests and treatments and almost zero relief. I'm in my early 30s and have had rheumatoid arthritis since I was a kid. So over 20 years, even hip replacements in my early 20s. In recent years with chronic pain now daily, I am on a biological that gives me relief. Modern medicine really helps, but you going to figure what works best for you. Advocate for your health and wish you well. Hey, so at 28 I played like 8 months of mystery diagnosis to find out I had undifferentiated connective tissue disease. Main symptom was early arthritis and way too many joints. For the past almost 2 years I've been treated with a combo of meds and my life has drastically improved. There is help and hope, even if it doesn't feel like it. The cause is currently undiagnosed, but I have premature arthritis. Like I'm not even 30 yet and already have an insane amount of degradation in my spine, hands, and feet. I have an array of lab work to get done just this week actually. In order to find the cause, I dissociate a lot. It numbs the pain for a little bit. Separating myself from my body is the closest thing I have to feeling healthy. Heat makes it feel slightly more bearable, so I move where it's hot all the time and use heating pads. However, I haven't found a solution that leaves me without pain even for a day. Hey, I had this. Tried all forms of birth control and nothing stopped it. My anemia was so bad it was like I had Alzheimer's. I got an ablation and it changed my life. It's an outpatient surgery where they laser down the layers of your uterus that have built up. I was out in about 3 hours. I barely get a period now. My anemia is gone. 100% worth it. I am one of the few women praying for menopause. Same. In my case, I have adenomyosis. I was getting 4 iron infusions twice a week. For so long my veins were starting to scar over and my hematologist, which I saw for chronic severe anemia, wanted to have a port surgically placed. Ablation made things worse. My body rejected steroids, well, less rejected than a big clot forced, pushed them out. Insurance won't cover a hysterectomy because I'm too young. I'm 36, and have no kids. I can't have kids. Only thing that works for me is continuous dose, as in, no week off. Hormonal birth control to completely suppress my periods. Given my age and migraine with aura and weight, working on it, but it's not a quick process. It puts me at a much higher risk for blood clots, but it's either that or a complete inability to function for 10-14 days a month and a fucking surgical port in my chest for iron infusions. Best apart, I've had adenomyosis for over 20 years, when I started menstruating, because all the symptoms go back to the very beginning, but wasn't diagnosed until 31 because no one, until my living angel current kin, believed me until I collapsed and needed an emergency blood transfusion. Some women just have heavy periods and young women with no kids don't get adenomyosis. Edit typos. Was in a car crash at age 14, spent 7 days in a coma, damaged my frontal lobes which are responsible for seeing the consequences of your actions. I used to get so mad and blurt out such dumb stuff, and make so many bad decisions. I'm 32 now. In the last few years I have realized how much of a lunatic I used to be, so I guess I am recovering, and I try to be very nice and polite to people. And then that energy would morph into irrational anger at everyone and everything. This is what most people don't understand about mania. It's not a happy experience, or, at least, 90% of it isn't. Dysphoric mania, anxiety, rage, seems to be at least as common. It doesn't help that you almost never recognize it as a manic episode until after the fact, during the anxiety-ridden calm down. And there are physical symptoms, too. The pressure behind the eyes, the electricity in the legs, the feeling of intense bodily heat even in a 17°C bedroom, the digestive nonsense, and the constant feeling of being on the edge of a panic attack. Not fun. They're different for everybody, but for me I would feel so creative. I had so many ideas and I was going to revolutionize the industry. Which industry? Whichever industry I just had the idea for. And boy oh boy, I would work on that idea furiously, for a couple of days, max. Then I'd have the next idea. And I was going to revolutionize that industry. Then I get back to that first one, but hey, another idea. Yes, the exclamation points are absolutely vital to convey the level of increasing energy. And then that energy would morph into irrational anger at everyone and everything. Come into my room, I hate you. I don't care that it's your room, too, and you're not even speaking to me. I will sit here and seethe in silence. After the anger always came the depression and suicidal ideation. At least I was consistent before I found the right cocktail of meds. Love to have a nice long depressive episode where I can ruminate on all the embarrassing shit I did while I was manic and not talk to any of my friends because I'm 1000% certain that they now think I am cringe. Really excellent disorder, hope they never find a cure. Love not knowing what my personality actually is because it changes on a dime. Me too. The constant policing and monitoring of my behavior is pretty exhausting, but has made me a very self-aware person. I'm always the first to say sorry and my friends say that even though I can definitely get difficult. The fact that I'll apologize the next day while many people never do is why they love me. Smile. Lots of good and bad with bipolar 2, but I guess that makes sense given the nature of the disease. Well, Buterin and Lamictal have been life-changing and I don't see myself going off of them anytime soon. Finally feel like myself after 10 years of feeling trapped in my own brain. It's like, where does bipolar end and where do I begin? Shit. This mania feels like a violation, even though it comes from within. You are run ragged and used, but by a prior self. The sense of embarrassment is beyond words, and the realization that an immense sense of power and understanding, almost a religious experience, was nothing but a drug one had no choice in the matter of taking, is really jarring. It feels like you met God, and then found him to be false. I haven't had a manic episode since 24, and it wasn't until my 30s that I felt confident in my ability to tell the difference between real transformation and shedding fuck. I'm doing it again. Bipolar type 1. Been in and out of mental facilities. Nobody tells you that the worst part is that you may never know you are having a manic episode, but everyone around you does. The ramifications of it is that now I have to walk around second-guessing everything I'm saying, doing before I do it. It's exhausting. I'm almost totally blind. I manage because I have to, even though it's really hard some days. I've been like this my whole life, so don't know what I'm missing out on. The world isn't made for people like me, but the best we can do is make it work, somehow. I also have a cochlear implant, as I am deaf in my left ear, and also have profound hearing loss, but am not deaf in my right ear. My hearing loss is progressive, as I was born with normal levels of hearing, and had that up until I was about 1 or 2. I then only had a partial hearing loss in my right ear, until I suddenly went deaf in my left ear at about 7 years old. My hearing loss is believed to have been caused by a condition known as Pandred syndrome. Was born with moderate hearing loss in my ears and at age 9, which started to happen months after a car accident. I lost my hearing and started to become severe, so for reference I used to be able to put headphones on and still be able to hear the song at basically high volume. When I lost my hearing, it got increasingly difficult to even hear the lyrics. At age 12 and 17 got my cochlear implants, and it was crazy the little sounds I had missed that I couldn't really hear with my hearing aids. My favorite, being Canadian, is the sound of hockey sticks on TV. Edit. I manage mostly lip-reading people. I know some sign but I don't really use it. I can hear words and sentences but my brain still has difficulty processing information, so I'll miss what is being said unless I focus on the person speaking. So sometimes I have someone rephrase a sentence just because I could not understand a word. These days, yeah. But I've adopted a lot of ways to limit how much stress I put on that leg, from how I walk, sit, take stairs, etc. They're pretty much ingrained in me now. At first it was pain all the time, sometimes debilitating, and I walked with a cane for over a year. I can't run anymore, like functionally. If I try, the leg will just collapse, even though I've got more muscle strength in my calves and thighs than any time previously. I can speed walk and jog at most. The former I can get out of without any pain. The latter will have me laid up for a few hours when I'm done. Did you tear something? When my ACL blew, I thankfully had the weird genetic disposition and leg strength that I was able to carry on normally with very little issue and stability problems. With the brace I was even able to continue playing indoor soccer with no problems. However, if I moved wrong, my knee would hyperextend and hurt. Once I got my ACL reconstructed 12 years ago, I've not had it happen a single time. So my husband is the one with ADHD, diagnosed at 36, and he keeps the schedule, but I think it's because he was diagnosed so late it became his coping mechanism. I get myself in trouble by not emailing things to him because I forget. On the other hand, I'm the finder of things and I'm the regulator of emotions law for both him and my kids that have ADHD. As a fellow ADHD/ADD, which was discovered at 29, now I'm 40, I totally concur the above. If I don't write things down, I tend to forget them. It didn't get easier when I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, which did reappear for the 3rd time in 7 years. Got a chemotherapy for this one. So glad that your wife is willing to help you. She's definitely a keeper. Getting help is not always easy, so when you realize you need it, and it is given to you, all the better. My short-term memory is completely shot to hell, especially when having appointments, so yes, writing the dates down on a calendar really helps. Recently got diagnosed at age 36. I'm chaos incarnate, my therapist says. I have a high IQ and an even higher processing information IQ, but for the life of me I'm freaking forgetful as hell. I write everything down in my Google shared agenda with my fiancé, with added things I can only see like clipping my damn fingernails or doing my beard. Otherwise I won't do it unless I get it pointed out. I'm way too biased thinking and doing 6 things at a time. No medication yet, as that's what my therapist will talk about next appointment. I'm actually used to being chaos, but my fiancé would love for me to be less, I'm sure. I have it too. Unfortunately, I was severely uneducated about the subject before I was diagnosed. Once I realized how much it affected my life, I honestly did not want to live anymore. I seen this as a massive burden and struggle that I must deal with. I'm trying really hard to fight to stay alive so I can get my hands on meds. I've also come to terms with the fact that my last relationship ended because of my undiagnosed ADHD. It ended at the end of March. I wake up every day with good old RSD, reminding myself that I'm an asshole for what I did and I'll never forgive myself for my mistakes. ADHD, medication, and at this point most of my executive function is outsourced to my wife. She's the kind of organized person who keeps a diary with all the family appointments in it anyway, so she includes mine and lets me know about my schedule. Once a year one watch in Oz, she does the changing of the diaries. It's like a superpower. She writes appointments in her diary every time, and then she checks it and just knows. My job is to tell her immediately if I make an appointment on my own, and to check with her when would be good if that's an option. I roll my eyes so hard at dudes who make jokes about me being whipped when I get invited to something social, and I'm like, let me just check with my wife if I'm free. I am not risking this sweet setup where my life is organized for me by getting in the way of my wife's system. If I mess up by double booking myself by agreeing to go paintballing with friends on the same day of, I don't know, a doctor's appointment, she might make me keep track of my own schedule and I'll be sent back to the hell of being incredibly bad at that I lived in before. No thanks. My wife is kind enough to track my schedule for me, and I show my gratitude by making sure that's easy enough for her to do. I was born with cerebral palsy and I struggle with being kind to myself. I always think that I could be achieving more than I am as a result of the organizational challenges associated with my disability. Any advice on how to refrain negative thinking? Likewise, how do I encourage positive thinking? Foraminal stenosis, issues around C5, pinched nerve due to bone spurs, can hear cracking in the neck anytime anywhere. With slight movement, it sucks on the bad days but is manageable on the good days. Might get surgery one day in the future to try and fuse the discs and free the nerves. Until then I must survive and do well for my family. Good luck to you. The whole asking for help thing is a strange one. Not long ago I injured my leg and went through a sequence of being fully immobile, being able to move around short distances on crutches, but with pain, to steadily improved mobility. I'm basically fine now. I have a good and supportive circle of friends who offer all the help I might possibly want. What I discovered is as I got better I really strongly, on an emotional level, did not want to accept help from people. I wanted the sense of independence of doing things for myself, even if I was slow, clumsy and feeling pain as a result of it. On a rational level it makes no sense. My friends would not have thought any worse of it if I had just asked for help, and yet on an emotional level I just didn't want to ask for it. Once, when I was at the point of being able to move on crutches without appreciable pain, I got on the bus and when a young guy immediately got off a seat for me, I caught myself actually feeling resentment, that like, I'm okay, I can just stand. It's funny because, earlier in my recovery, when I got on a bus and genuinely was in pain and the same thing happened, I was extremely grateful for the seat. On a rational level it makes absolutely no sense, and yet that was the emotional reaction I had at the time. I totally understand that my experience was something of a disability tourist, and that it was a passing phase of my recovery from an injury. But I found that actually living through it changed my view on the topic of the psychological aspects of how living with a disability affects people, in a way that previously I couldn't easily relate to. I'm glad someone caught that. He trained and worked as a mechanic for 20 years with vision similar to mine. Then around age 40 he lost his vision entirely. He tried to continue working in a shop for a while, but couldn't rely on his co-workers to put tools back where they belonged or not leave obstructions in walkways, so he opened his own shop out of his garage, and ran it successfully for another 20 years before he retired. Could diagnose the problem by the sound it made driving up, and fix it by touch.